Hi, everybody. I'm Alyce-Kay Reckelhouse from Threshold Life and Nanny and the Widow Reckelhouse. And we're continuing our conversation about Jesus being Lord or Jesus being boss. So, did you come to a decision about that when I asked you to think about it before coming to this next lesson? If you haven't, that's okay. But I would recommend that you stop watching this series for now and if you want to talk to me, feel free to contact me. I have a link below that you can contact me privately through my contact page on my website, or talk to a local pastor or priest about what it means to make Jesus your Lord. And I'm not saying don't watch the rest of this. I'm just saying this is like the most important decision of your entire life. All right, don't hurry, don't rush things. It's just a really important decision. If you want to continue watching so that you understand a little bit more about what that means and how that happens and everything, then that's a great idea. You can go ahead and do that. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what it means for Jesus to be your Lord and how do we do that? I mean, if we have said, okay, Lord, I want you to be Lord of my life. You've saved me. You've redeemed me through your work on the cross. And I accept that because, some people know that Jesus redeemed them, but they don't care and they don't want him to. But I want that from you. I want to accept what you've done and I want you to be Lord of my life. So then this is kind of one of those things, kind of like what we were talking about earlier about, Lord, I believe, please help me overcome my unbelief. A lot of times we know that we want Jesus to be the Lord of our life, but we still really struggle with it. Or we're not struggling with whether or not we want it to, we're struggling with making it happen. Okay, so there's a few things that I want to talk about, and these are almost like opposites. There's a real interesting juxtaposition here in how this takes place. So first of all, it's a one-time decision and it's an ongoing decision. Okay, so it's one-time decision really where you have to wrestle with it and decide, do I want Jesus to be my Lord? Do I want him to be in charge of my life or do I not? Okay, and that's what I know a lot of you are struggling with right now. And I really do recommend that you get somebody to talk to or at least to pray for you. Okay, so it's that one-time decision. Once you've made that decision, you've pretty much made that decision. Sometimes people unmake that decision. I mean, intentionally decide, no, I don't want Jesus to be the boss of my life anymore. And then they remake that decision again later. But for the most part, once you've made that decision and you start living with it, you don't want anything else. Okay, so, but it's also an ongoing decision. It's something that we have to decide kind of every day, and sometimes a lot of times a day when we're faced with various choices. Do I want to follow Jesus? Do I want to let him be Lord of my life? Or do I want to make my own decision and do what I want? And here's the thing. People say Jesus is a gentleman. That's true. He does not barge in where you don't want him. You might have said, I want you to be the Lord of my life, but then you make a decision to do something that diametrically opposes what he wants. He's not going to stop you. It's your decision. You have free will. You have to choose constantly whether you're going to say yes to Jesus or yes to yourself. And sometimes that's a really, really difficult choice to make. Okay, so it's a one-time choice and it's an ongoing choice. And as you do that more and more, it does get easier. Once you say yes to God in a really difficult situation, the next time it's going to be a little bit easier, and the next time it's going to be a little bit easier. And the opposite is true too. If you say no to God in a difficult situation, the next time you have that choice, it's going to be a lot easier to say no than it is yes. So try to think about that whenever you're making that decision. Okay. So the other thing is that it's something that takes a lot of strength. It takes a lot of determination, but you can't do it by yourself. Okay, so what do I mean by that? It's hard sometimes to make those choices. And sometimes it's just small things like, do I want to have more food than I need? Because, gluttony is a sin. And that's a sin that's very acceptable in America, isn't it? But it is a very grave sin. And so that's probably the thing that I struggle with the most. Okay. It's like, especially living alone, there's nobody to make me feel embarrassed or anything if I'm overeating. So I'm having to ask myself, is Jesus going to be Lord of my life here, or am I going to be the Lord? Am I going to give in to my lustful passions? Lustful passions don't have to be about sex. They can be about food. They can be about anything else. Anything that feeds our body and gives our body priority over Jesus' lordship. So am I going to give in to that, or am I going to give in to Jesus' lordship in my life, which he wants what's best for me? He loves me and he knows what's best. Okay, so any other sin like that, maybe you're talking and this is a real common one too. It's like, let's say that I'm trying to be careful. Let's say that a politician, maybe the governor of your state or something, has set up a new standard for something or done something. If you say, oh, this is what he's meant or what he's saying, when that really isn't what he said, that's bearing false witness. Okay, it's lying. That's breaking one of the 10 commandments. So I have the choice. That's a really popular thing to do right now, you guys. If you read the newspapers, if you listen to conversation around you, that's really, really popular to do. So I have the choice. Am I going to do that, or am I going to obey Jesus' lordship in my life? All right. And you may not see that it makes too much of a difference, or maybe it makes a difference because your friends aren't going to like you as much, or you don't think that they're going to like you as much or anything. Whichever way, it's your choice. But just keep in mind that the choice that you make right now is going to make Jesus' lordship over you easier or more difficult in the future. Okay, so then, but we can't do this by ourselves. And I really, really want to make it clear on that, if you try to make Jesus Lord of your life and you try to obey him all the time, just in your own power, not going to happen. It's not, because we're not strong enough to do that. We have a sinful nature. So who do we get help with? Well, there's a couple things. First of all, we get help from our fellow believers, okay, our brothers and sisters in the Lord praying for us. When we share with them and say, I'm really struggling with this, can you please pray for me? For Catholics, going into confession and talking to their priest about the things that they're struggling with, and he will give you a penance that will help you with that. It's not a punishment, it's something that helps you with that. Or he'll, give you some kind of advice and stuff. Talking to your pastor, if you're Protestant, pastors are often really good at giving you counsel on that. The main thing that I think is very helpful is having people praying. But the most important thing that really, really helps you to submit to God's lordship, to do what Jesus wants and let him be really Lord of your life, is the Holy Spirit. And Jesus promised his disciples, and we'll talk more about this later on when we talk about the Holy Spirit, probably in a few months at the rate we're going. But when we talk about the Holy Spirit, but just know this, that Jesus, when he left earth, he promised his disciples that he would send the Holy Spirit, who would be their comforter, who would walk along with them, and who would help them to remember his words and to obey them. And so the Holy Spirit did come on Pentecost, and with power, with major power, and we'll learn about that later. But if you don't want to wait, then just like Google Pentecost and find out what happened. But here's the bottom line, is that when you decide that you want Jesus to be the Lord of your life, God's Spirit enters you, the Holy Spirit enters you, and he's there to help you. He will nudge you in the right direction. He will give you the strength when you say, Holy Spirit, I really need your help right now. I know what the right decision is, and I'm having the hardest time making that, or it's just too hard for me. It's such a struggle. He will give you the strength. All right, so we'll talk about that more when we talk about the Holy Spirit later on, but that's just an overview of what it means, how we go about making Jesus Lord of our life. All right, I love you all. Any questions or comments or further thoughts, put those in the comments below. I'm trying to keep these short, so I'm trying not to put everything in there, but you guys can add those things in the comments, okay? All right, I love you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.